Capital punishment, also known as the death penalty, is a government-sanctioned practice whereby a person is killed by the state as a punishment for a crime. Capital punishment is a matter of active controversy in several countries, including the United States, and positions can vary within different political ideologies and different cultural regions. Today I'll be arguing both sides of the question, should the U.S. continue to use the capital punishment? Many Americans believe that the capital punishment in America is a broken process from start to finish. Death sentences are predicted by not by the barbarousness of the crime, but by the poor quality of defense lawyers, the race of the accused, or the victim. From 1976 to 2015, 1,392 executions occurred in the United States, and 995 of them took place in the South, according to the National Conference of State Legislators. These same people believe that time and time again it has been proven that the criminal justice system fails to protect the innocent and persons with serious mental disabilities and illnesses from execution. 1 out of every 10 who has been executed in the United States since 1977 is mentally ill, according to the Amnesty International and the National Association of Mental Illness. Many mentally ill defendants are unable to participate in their trials in any meaningful way and appear to be unengaged, cold, and unfeeling before the jury. Since the reinstatement of the death penalty in the United States in 1976, 138 innocent men and women have been released from death row, including some who came within minutes of execution. Even the administration of executions is flawed. Every method of execution comes with an intolerable high risk of extreme pain and torture. According to the Oregonian, in 2000, a fiscal impact summary from the Oregon Department of Administration Services stated that the Oregon Judicial Department alone would save $2.3 million annually if the death penalty were eliminated. It is estimated that the total prosecution and defense costs to the state and countries equal $9 million per year. Another argument against capital punishment is the fact that one of the most frequent causes of reversals in death penalty cases is ineffective assistance of counsel. A study at Columbia University found that 68% of all death penalty cases were reversed on appeal, with inadequate defense as one of the main reasons for requiring reversals. In addition to all of the above reasons, the death penalty is applied at random. The death penalty is a lethal lottery of the 15,000 to 17,000 homicides committed every year in the United States. Approximately 120 people are sentenced to death, less than 1%. On the other side, supporters of the death penalty argue that the death penalty allows the state appropriate retribution. Criminals must face the consequences of their actions. Being taught from a young age that actions have consequences and consequences bring order to our society. This is the idea of retribution. They have to pay for the price of their actions, and it should be an equal measure. Another argument is that life sentences for criminals who expect the death penalty are an unfair financial burden on the state. An analysis of the cost of detention for life without parole shows that detention will cost approximately $34,000 per year for an average of about 50 years. The cost of trial and appeals will cost around $75,000. This analysis shows that the overall costs of the death penalty where called for are much lower than a lengthy incarceration without parole, and that is even before adjustment to life costs have been made to cover the costs of treating disease and suffering of old age, which are typically complex and expensive to treat. The same people argue that the death penalty can provide a deterrent against violent crime. When many criminologists define deterrence in terms of death penalty, they are looking at how the presence of this sentencing can stop violent acts by preventing someone to commit them in the first place. In quote, capital punishment is likely to deter more than other punishments because people fear death more than anything else, said Ernest van den Haag, professor of jurisprudence at Fordham University. Capital punishment creates an irreversible deterrent that the murderer will never get the chance to take a life again. Another argument made is that it doesn't need to be carried out with brutality. The focus of the death penalty in the United States is focused on ending life as quickly and peacefully as possible. That is why the process is typically carried out through the use of lethal injection, creating a medically imposed death that involves the least amount of pain as possible. The percentage of Americans in favor of the death penalty has fluctuated significantly over the years, ranging from a low of 42% in 1966 during the revival of the anti-death penalty movement to a high of 80% in 1994. More recently, public opinion on the death penalty has been more stable, with an upward of 2 in 3 Americans supporting it. Republicans and Democrats' opinions on the death penalty differ. Although a majority in both group endorses it, 80% of Republicans support the death penalty, while 67 of independents and 58 of Democrats support it. Americans who identify themselves as political conservatives are also more likely to support the death penalty than are moderates or liberals. Nearly 3 in 4 conservatives support capital punishment, compared with the 68% of moderates and 54% of liberals. Although a majority of both men and women support the death penalty, men are much more likely to do so than women. More than 7 in 10 men support the death penalty, compared with the 62% of women. There are substantial differences between whites and blacks in their support for capital punishment. The data shows that 71% of whites support the death penalty, compared with only 44% of blacks. This stark difference is the result of the ongoing debate about overrepresentation of blacks on death rows across the country. The Bureau of Justice Statistics reports that there was 3,374 prisoners on death row in 2003, of which 1,418 were black and 1,878 were white. Blacks represent 42% of the inmates on death row, but only 12% of the nation's problem. With all that being said, it's hard to choose a side on the question, should the U.S. continue to use the death penalty? Both sides have equal arguments, while supporters of the death penalty argue that the death penalty allows for retribution, life sentences are expensive, deterrence, and the fact that the lethal injection is the least amount of pain possible. The other side argues that the death penalty process is broken, the criminal justice system fails to protect the innocent, and one of the most frequent causes of reversals in death penalty is ineffective assistance of counsel. These are just some of the many arguments made by both sides of this topic.